One of you asked me about the Pearl Davis Piers Morgan interview, and I gave kind of a funny, take, my witticisms and such. But there was actually something that I had noticed, and I've been mulling it over. I've just been churning it over in my mind. This aspect that came up. So there was something about like women's achievement economically and historically and such. And so then Pearl brings up she brings up these women of like the 1800s who were of renowned success at their time and would to this day be fundamentally in really the Pareto's distribution of the top 20% of performers in our present society, even if you were to take even what they did then. So this person argued back, fundamentally that this is the stage at which, because this also came up with Kevin Samuels, that Kevin Samuels would have these arguments where he would then have to bring up historically speaking, and he would talk about real people who really existed. and would give an example, like a person like this wouldn't really exist if you, this kind of view of the world you have, I don't think you understand history quite accurately. Like if you take this person as any example of what could have been and actually was. So Pearl had made this really good argument about how widely women were involved in market economics in early America, and that really, it's really kind of fascinating the level that women were of import to market economics of not just early America, all the way from the independent colonies or the various colonies. So this is even before Britain takes over the colonies, but it's all the way until you get to settlement. There's entire towns in the United States that were saved by the wealth of women who ran the largest hotel in the city. And they were so wealthy that they would rebuild the town after the town burnt down. And so she's like, haven't you read the writings of these people? This is the part that really has kind of become concerning. My father brought this up about the universities on the continent. And he said there you have to cite a lot of source documents, but like really source documents. Like they go way back to the source of where that field came from. Its entire epistemology. You have to study like really old school people. So the United States does a lot more summarizing of knowledge, making it a little bit more practical and applicable to market economics. So, and it was because he had pointed out it's because the systems were built to create different kinds of people, some people to be in market trade of some sort very quickly. So the thing that I started to have to go over was really more and more there's this detachment from being read on the source documents that would show somebody, okay, this is what it was like at that time, with, say, the contention of all of a certain group were just horribly poor and had no access to the economy whatsoever, or civil life or something. Is that true? Did they write books? Do we have their writings about their experience during their life at that time? And more, like Kevin Samuels is pointing out, like, yeah, we have a lot of documentation by black people about their lives in the 1800s. We have a shocking amount of information on this, and what a lot of people are saying is relatively ahistorical. It wasn't this sort of savage world of violence and mayhem like people want to kind of think. It had to have been And for what reason it had to have been is really their issue. And I like how Pearl kind of pointed out, have you read their writings with also the import of that idea? She's pointing out, well, I'm citing real people who were women who wrote about their lives on top of it all. They were so successful in the 1800s, they wrote about themselves. So it's it's one of these things, like, it was very good. It was a very good kind of, and there was no real comeback. She didn't really seem to kind of get what was said to her. And it's one of those things for people who are really history buffs, who we find a lot of stories of people, just we find people's stories fascinating. Well, that's the kind of thing I was thinking about, is that yeah, it just, that said a lot. That was one of those little chunks of an interview that said so much, because that's now the big thing with the right versus the left, that the right then cites its sources and crushes their opponents into like atoms. And it's good to see. It's actually good to see how the modern platforms kind of can allow for that to happen. Have a good day, y'all.